안녕하세요.
The setting sun reflected off the mirrored windows of the Kang Group building, the imposing corporation led by the young billionaire Kang Ji-hoon. Known for his cold demeanor and perfectionism, Ji-hoon kept a calculated distance from his employees until a small incident changed everything. Yoon Hana, a dedicated employee from the marketing department, hurried down the corridor when she stumbled, dropping a stack of documents right in front of the CEO's office door. The sound echoed through the room, drawing Ji-hoon's attention. He frowned before rising from his leather chair, his sharp gaze locking onto the scene before him. "You do realize this hallway isn't a racetrack, right?" Ji-hoon said, crossing his arms as he watched Hana scramble to pick up the scattered papers. Hana felt her face heat up, but she didn't back down. "I'm sorry, Mr. Kang. I was taking these documents to an important meeting." He crouched down slowly, picking up one of the fallen reports, his sharp eyes scanning the detailed notes Hana had written. "Interesting. Is this a brand repositioning strategy?" Hana nodded, still surprised that he was interested in her work. "Yes, I noticed some inconsistencies in our current approach and thought we could increase engagement by shifting our digital strategy." Ji-hoon raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Come to my office tomorrow and explain this to me in more detail." Hana blinked a few times, unable to believe what she had just heard. The CEO never requested one-on-one meetings with lower-level employees. Something about her had caught his attention. As Ji-hoon returned to his desk, a small smile appeared on his lips. Little did he know that this unexpected encounter would change his life forever. The next morning, Yoon Hana stepped onto the executive floor, her heart racing. She had never imagined having a meeting with Kang Ji-hoon himself, a man whose imposing presence intimidated even the most experienced employees in the company. Simply standing before him was a challenge for anyone, but she wouldn't let fear take over. As she entered the luxurious space of his office, she was met with his sharp gaze, already focused on the documents she had dropped the day before. "Sit down," he said without looking up from the papers. "Explain your idea." Hana took a deep breath and began presenting her strategy, gesturing slightly as she spoke with passion about the project. She outlined the flaws in the current marketing approach, the mistakes in digital campaigns, and how a restructuring could double the company's reach. As she spoke, she noticed Ji-hoon listening intently, his fingers tapping lightly on the glass desk. His silence was almost suffocating, as if he were analyzing every word she said. When she finished, Ji-hoon interlaced his fingers and let out a faint sigh. "You have an interesting strategic eye," he stated. "I didn't expect that from someone in your position." Hana frowned. "My position?" He realized his mistake and for the first time hesitated. "I mean, you're below the levels that make major decisions in the company, but you have an analytical mind that could be put to good use." She crossed her arms, defiant. "Talent isn't determined by job titles, Mr. Kang." For a moment, Ji-hoon was silent, then let out a short chuckle. "You're not afraid to speak your mind. That's unusual." Hana lifted her chin, feeling a mix of satisfaction and apprehension. "If I were afraid, I wouldn't be here." Ji-hoon leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. "Then prove it. I want you to develop a detailed proposal for this strategy and present it to me in 1 week. If it's good enough, I might implement it." Na's eyes widened slightly. "1 week? Alone?" He shrugged. "Unless you think you can't handle it." Her pride was instantly wounded. "I can handle it. Don't worry." "Good." Ji-hoon picked up another document and began flipping through it. "You're dismissed." Hana stood up, still processing what had just happened. As she left the room, she felt her heart pounding. Was this an opportunity or a challenge? Maybe both. What she didn't know was that, on the other side of the office, Ji-hoon was also deep in thought. He had never given this kind of attention to a lower-level employee before. But something about her intrigued him, something he couldn't ignore. As Hana walked out, Ji-hoon caught himself watching her for longer than he should have. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a dangerous attraction. The days that followed were a whirlwind for Yoon Hana. Between meetings, sleepless nights, and constant revisions of her project, she dedicated herself entirely to impressing Kang Ji-hoon. He, in turn, continued to observe her from a distance, curious to see just how far her determination would take her. On the afternoon of the seventh day, Hana stepped into the main conference room carrying a stack of documents and a meticulously prepared digital presentation. Ji-hoon was already waiting, seated with his usual unreadable expression. Other executives were present as well, making the pressure even greater. "You have 20 minutes, Ji-hoon stated, adjusting his tie and leaning back in his chair. "Show me why I should consider this strategy." Hana took a deep breath and began her presentation. She mastered every detail, responding confidently to all the challenging questions from the executives. Ji-hoon remained silent for a long moment afterward, merely drumming his fingers on the table. Then he finally spoke. Impressive. His voice was controlled, but something in his gaze suggested he hadn't expected such an exceptional performance. "Let's discuss the next steps. Dinner tonight at 8. Na's eyes widened. "Dinner? A celebration of your good work?" he replied with a faint smile, standing up. "And also to go over additional details. This is not a request." Hours later, Hana walked into the sophisticated restaurant where Ji-hoon was waiting. The ambiance was refined, and his presence there felt even more imposing outside the office. When she sat down, he observed her for a moment before asking, "Do you always work with such intensity?" "Only when it's worth it," Hana replied, raising an eyebrow. "And it seems like it was." Ji-hoon smiled, something rare to witness. Indeed. The evening unfolded with surprisingly light conversation. For the first time, Ji-hoon seemed less like a CEO and more like a person. They laughed, shared stories, and without realizing it, something had shifted between them. As Ji-hoon walked her to the exit, his fingers brushed lightly against hers while handing her coat to her. It was a small gesture, but enough for both of them to feel an unexpected chill down their spine. Something new had begun. In the days that followed, something had undeniably changed between Kang Ji-hoon and Yoon Hana. What was once a strictly professional relationship now carried an inexplicable tension. Ji-hoon found himself watching Hana more often than he should, and she, in turn, became increasingly aware of how his presence affected her in ways she had never imagined. What had started as admiration for her talent was slowly evolving into something deeper, something dangerous. They both tried to ignore the growing attraction, but it was inevitable. But not everything would be easy. That afternoon, Ji-hoon was summoned to a meeting with his father, Kang Dae-jung, the chairman of the conglomerate. The patriarch's cold stare indicated that the matter was serious. The spacious office, decorated in dark tones and solid wood furnishings, radiated the authority Dae-jung wielded over everyone. "I've heard rumors that you've been giving special attention to an employee," the old businessman said bluntly. "Is this true?" Ji-hoon maintained a firm expression. "I don't see how that would be a problem. Hana is talented and has great potential." "Potential?" His father let out a humorless chuckle. "You know very well that this kind of involvement can damage both your reputation and the company's. Are you willing to risk everything for a low-ranking employee?" Ji-hoon didn't respond immediately. He had always been a rational man, but for the first time, he felt the need to fight for something that wasn't part of the plan. "She's not just any employee," Ji-hoon finally said, his voice steadier than expected. "And I don't make decisions based on gossip." Dae-jung studied him for a long moment before leaning back in his chair. "Very well, but be aware that the board is watching. Don't make a mistake you'll regret." Meanwhile, Hana was unaware of the tensions brewing at the top levels of the company. However, things became clearer when her colleague and friend, Soo-jin, pulled her aside at the end of the workday. "Hana, are you sure about what you're doing?" "What do you mean?" "People are talking about you in the hallways. They say the CEO is interested in you," Soo-jin whispered. "And some people aren't happy about it." Na's heart pounded. She had always known that Ji-hoon was a powerful man, but she had never considered the consequences of getting too close to him. Her name was now circulating around the office, and the way her colleagues looked at her had changed. Some gazes were filled with envy, others with disdain. To make matters worse, that same night, as she left the office, Hana noticed a black car parked near the entrance. The tinted window rolled down slowly, revealing a man in a black suit with a serious expression. "Miss Yoon," he called. "We need to talk." She hesitated, her heart racing. "Who are you?" "That doesn't matter right now. Please, get in the car. It's about Kang Ji-hoon." The first real obstacle had emerged. Should Hana get in the car and find out what was going on, or run before it was too late? The black car parked in front of the building was a clear sign that something was wrong. Yoon Hana felt a chill run down her spine as she stared at the unknown man who had called her by name. Her instincts told her to run, but the mention of Kang Ji-hoon made her hesitate. "Miss Yoon, we don't have much time. Get in the car," the man insisted, his voice tense but not overtly threatening. Hana tightened her grip on her purse, trying to decide whether she could trust this situation. That was when she noticed another car parked a few meters behind, with two figures inside watching. Her heartbeat quickened. Was she being monitored? With no other choice, she stepped into the car. As soon as the door closed, the man handed her a brown envelope. "This came into my possession this morning. You need to see it." Hana opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside were photographs images of her and Ji-hoon at the restaurant, leaving together the exchanged glances in the office. And at the very end, a typed letter. Asterisk, low-ranking employees should know their place. Step away, or the consequences will be irreversible. Asterisk. Her stomach churned. Who? Who sent this? "We're not certain, but we suspect someone within the board. Influential people who don't want you near the CEO." Hana knew Ji-hoon was one of the most sought-after men in the country, but she had never imagined that getting involved with him would drag her into a game of threats and power. Fear mixed with growing indignation. "And Ji-hoon? Does he know about this?" "Not yet, but you need to decide whether to tell him or to walk away before it's too late." Na's decision would change everything. Should she stand by Ji-hoon and face their enemies together, or step away to protect him? Time was running out. Yoon Hana held the envelope with trembling hands. The words printed on the letter echoed in her mind like a cruel warning. Asterisk. Step away, or the consequences will be irreversible. Asterisk. Her heart pounded erratically. She had never imagined that falling in love with Kang Ji-hoon would bring this level of danger into her life. But walking away from him? That hurt more than any threat. That night, she made her decision. Clutching the envelope tightly, Hana went to Ji-hoon's apartment. He opened the door, his expression softening when he saw her, but the look on her face immediately put him on high alert. Without wasting a second, she handed him the documents. Ji-hoon examined the photos and the letter, his eyes darkening with anger. "Who did this?" "We don't know, but they said it could be someone from the board. They want me to stay away from you." He clenched his fists, his expression turning dangerous. "If they think they can control me like this, they're gravely mistaken." Ji-hoon didn't waste any time. The next day, he called an emergency meeting with the company's board of directors. His presence commanded respect, and when he threw the photos and letter onto the table, silence filled the room. "I want the person responsible for this found immediately. If any of you think you can dictate my personal life, you're completely wrong." The directors exchanged uneasy glances, but no one dared to challenge him. Ji-hoon knew this wouldn't be the last time he would have to face opposition, but he was determined. He wouldn't let anyone take Hana away from him. Days later, the scandal died down. With Ji-hoon taking a firm stand, the rumors ceased, and the threat disappeared at least for now. However, he knew he would always have to protect Hana. Then, on a peaceful Saturday, Ji-hoon surprised her with an outing. They arrived at a beautiful private garden, where a small picnic was waiting for them. The CEO looked into her eyes and took her hand. "I never imagined I'd meet someone like you, Hana. And now, I can't picture my life without you." She smiled, deeply moved. "I never thought I'd fall for you either. But now, I can't see another path." Ji-hoon knelt down and opened a small velvet box. Inside, a ring sparkled under the sunlight. "Marry me. No matter what anyone says, I want you by my side, forever." Tears of joy streamed down Na's face. Without hesitation, she said, "Yes." Months later, their wedding took place in an elegant yet intimate ceremony. Ji-hoon and Hana had finally overcome every challenge. Now, they were ready to build a new life together, without fear or barriers.